This is a Stereoforest production from stereoforest.com. Information, resources, and opportunities to support the show and connect with others are available at stereoforest.com/daily reconnect. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have specific mental health concerns, please consult with a qualified healthcare professional. Now, on to the show. Welcome to the Daily Reconnect. It's March 24th, and I'm your host, deHaan. This podcast is designed to help you reconnect with the present while you might feel detached or unmotivated with the world around you, or if things just feel pretty surreal. Together, we'll re-engage with the reality of the world, our minds, and hopefully each other. This podcast is going to be the same with a bit of a weekly reorganization. This is while I gear up towards a sustainable daily offering. On Mondays, I share some words of motivation to continue with your week. Life is a struggle, and remaining motivated to continue this fight that is existence and to maintain democracy, all of it is pretty exhausting and draining. Other episodes include grounding exercises to settle the nerves and reconnect. So use whatever resonates with you and modify or discard anything that doesn't feel right or doesn't work for you. So today we will explore the subtle but pretty powerful territory that exists between recognition and action. It's a space where many of us find ourselves today. So by now you may have come to see systems of harm, things such as the exploitation that exists in capitalism, or the very dangerous patterns that we're seeing in fascism. You might even recognize the interconnected crises of climate and healthcare and isolation, and how fascism rises from all of these things happening simultaneously. Recognizing this is really important, because that is the foundation of any meaningful response that we can even make to all of this that's going down. But this recognition alone, while it's really important alone, it changes nothing or not very much. Like sitting with signs, that doesn't change anything, or even attending a rally in a convention center, just going and showing up. Very little comes from that as well. The action after these things, that does change something. There's a particular comfort in awareness without action, a sense that seeing clearly is enough, that naming the problem somehow addresses it, just having the conversation. We tell ourselves, well, at least I understand what's happening, at least I'm not deceived. We share articles, we share posts on Blue Sky. We express our outrage on a Reddit thread. We might attend a big rally or a presentation from our political leaders. We might have passionate conversations with like-minded friends of ours. And all of these things, yes, they're important, but they might stop short of anything that is really transformative. Action. And this moment in history demands action. Many of us find ourselves waiting. We wait for leaders to emerge out of all of this, ones who will show us the way forward. We wait for the perfect organization to join, or we wait for the perfect organization to, get behind and say that we support. We wait for a moment when the action feels less risky or less inconvenient to our schedules, less disruptive of our daily lives. We wait for someone else to do the work, someone, say, more knowledgeable than you, or more eloquent than me, or more qualified to organize the resistance or create an alternate option for us. We're waiting to act, and until then, we don't want our lives to be disturbed. Now, this is understandable. What we're looking at today, our rights as humans, or the climate, or our workspaces, or money, or access, or politics, it's enormous. All these things are huge. Individual action can seem insignificant against these huge things, these huge systems. And yet throughout history, the significant movements for justice and liberty didn't start very often with charismatic leaders or the perfect plan. They started with ordinary people who simply stopped waiting. These important movements, that the ones that have succeeded, have often started with a bunch of people in a community meeting in the basement and coordinating and staying in solidarity, being consistent. Powers that be, they don't concede that power from way up there, but they do respond to a significant amount of pressure from below, from people like us. Grassroots action, organized effort that just emerges from the communities that are affected, have been the primary catalyst for meaningful change. Now, that doesn't mean that all of us, every single person, has to become an activist full-time or organize a massive movement. And if there's something that's already out there, already organized, in motion, go and join that. But know that these grassroots movements, the ones that start in basements, they thrive when they have diverse forms of participation, diverse participants with a bunch of different skills from a bunch of different backgrounds that can offer their insight, offer their expertise. And what makes these movements so powerful and so effective is because they aren't uniform. They're people, they're groups that are refusing to wait for someone else to do it, for someone else to fix it. So honestly, assess sometime this week, assess your life and see if you are waiting, perhaps. If you notice any of these patterns of thought, like I'll get more involved when I have more time or more energy or more money, or I'll do something when I find the best organization, or maybe I'll do some more research and look into it later. Or maybe it's something like I'll act when I feel more confident, like I don't feel comfortable on video, or whatever it is. And now these thoughts, they're totally normal. So many of us share them, but they end up working as barriers, essentially, between recognizing that big problem, the thing that you recognize and understand, and actually starting to act upon that concern. So what would it look like to stop waiting? You might need to be a little bit shy or uncomfortable until you get to know people in the organization. Recognize that. If you know that's probably going to be true for you, recognize that it's occurring and know that it won't necessarily be forever. Or maybe you need to reorganize a part of your week to be able to fit in some sort of volunteering or effort into a hectic schedule. So your contribution might be small, and that's okay too, because it still matters. Grassroots efforts and changes, this comes from consistent and coordinated efforts across many people with many different skills and talents. It doesn't come from one or two heroes or notable names. The change comes from hundreds or thousands of people, each doing what they can wherever they are with what they have. And that's often enough. So find the courage to act on what you care about today. Notice when complacency might appear as your voice of reason. Maybe that voice is telling you to wait for something better, or any of the things that I mentioned earlier, like better leaders or tasks or a better time in your life. And challenge this voice. Challenge it. Be curious and challenge it. The cost right now with a lot of what we're dealing with is pretty darn high. And because of what we're looking at, we might feel like we're never quite ready. You don't need to have all the answers or know the entire path forward or what we should do. But grassroots action begins with just showing up in your community. Bring your honesty, your curiosity, your humanity to these spaces where people are working collectively towards justice, towards our shared goals. And in those spaces, that's where the strategy comes out. That's where it emerges through that relationship that you start building. Clarity, what we need to do, develops through these shared experiences, and confidence grows through the little victories, the small wins that we win together, because it's not easy and it's not supposed to be, but also you're not alone. These huge, scary systems that we're confronting, these systems, they want us to permanently wait. That's how they win. They don't want action. So our most powerful response to what's going on is to just begin, just start anyway. If it's imperfect or partial, like that's fine. But we need to act decisively and now. The world that we want doesn't come from perfection or sometime later or someone else fixing it, somebody else saving it. But if we have the courage to come together right now, we can build this from the ground up with the people around us today. There's so many more of us than there are of them. You're not powerless in the face of these systems. Your capacity for action, especially when it's joined with others in your own communities, that has a real potential for change, even if things seem pretty hopeless right now. And the time for waiting, that passed a while ago. The grassroots movements, those will shape our future, and they're here and they're growing in size. They don't need you to be perfect. They don't need a perfect time. They simply need you to be there, to be present, to be persistent, consistent, in it for the long run, in whichever ways you have the capacity for. So that's it for today, March 24th. Thank you so much for joining me, and let's reconnect again on Wednesday for a grounding vagal nerve exercise. Thank you for listening to the Daily Reconnect. Episodes are released on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every week. This show was created, written, hosted, edited, and produced by deHaan. Links to contact information, ways to support the show, transcripts, the free newsletter, and our community Discord can be found in the show notes. This is a Stereo Forest production.